G'day Sharp fans, Dom here. So as promised, we have the finished 12mm Kukris. Well, actually, they're more like 13, 14 millimeters, roughly. 12 millimeters is just the average. But these things are ridiculously cool. Now, I showed a build video on these a couple of months ago where I probably documented like 10% of the bullshit that went into making these things because they were ridiculously just time consuming. Oh, essentially, these things were a time and money pit for 14 months. That's right, 14 months I've been working on these things off and on again, and I'm so glad they're finished. I have nightmares from these things. They were just, ugh. And not just because of the fact that they're 14 millimeters thick. I mean, that's obviously a factor. There's a lot of grinding in these things, as you can see in the video. But there was just a lot of bad luck with these things. And when I was grinding this thing, right, I was using a 10-inch contact wheel, and I was using that to kind of remove bulk material. And while I was doing that, I snagged a tip, and the knife essentially cut straight through the belt and into my wheel. Now, keep in mind, a contact wheel like that is about 400 Australian dollars. So, yeah, that was not good. I was exceptionally angry about that. Luckily, 84 Engineering managed to fix it for me. They just basically turned it down a bit and got rid of all of the damaged parts, so my wheel's fine, but holy shit, was that scary. It also threw the knife straight at me, which is not great, considering at the time it was about 1.5 kilos, maybe even 2 kilos, straight into my chest. So that was terrifying, and I'm kind of lucky that I'm still alive. Also, I had issues drilling these things out. I managed to get a drill bit stuck right in there. It was like a 3mm drill bit for my pilot hole. I was drilling it out, it got stuck right in there, and it kind of just said, locked in there and said, fuck you, I'm not coming out. So I did what I thought was a sensible thing to do, which I've seen on YouTube, where people go and say, oh, go and buy a carbide drill bit, which is like 50 bucks, and drill it out, which was working great until I broke that off in the same hole too. Yeah. So to fix that, I managed to scribe a line on the other side and basically drill a hole through, and just through sheer force, I basically smashed it out the other side and got it out that way. And luckily, after I drilled it all out to 6 millimeters and reamed it all out, it all worked fine. It was straight, but that could have very easily just ruined the knife. And then also other weird shit like equipment failing on me. For some reason, the VFD in my grinder for like a solid month said, I'm not fucking working. I don't know why, but it fixed itself. And at the moment, I'm just crossing my fingers that it decides to stay that way. Just so much headache in making these knives. A couple of close calls in my life, but they're done, and yeah, I'm just glad they're finished, and it was worth the effort. These things are just so fucking cool. I mean, holy shit, the sense of power when you hold one of these things. I mean, you just hold this, and you want to go fight some sort of large animal, like a bear or a gorilla or something. I mean, holy shit, this is something that you're not really going to see from any other knife maker, at least I haven't seen it, because this is 12 millimeters of hardened SUP9 tool steel. SUP9 is very close to 5160. It's basically the only steel I could get in this thickness, and it's just ridiculous. Obviously, it's impractical. I mean, the weight alone, you're not going to be swinging this around for half an hour. It's going to wear you out. I think from memory, they're over 1 kilogram each. This might be a little bit less because it's obviously ground differently, but they're all very heavy, and the edges on these things, I mean, they're just axes. They're knife-shaped, long axes, so they're not even that great for like chopping into timber because they tend to, not stick in as deeply as I'd like. But obviously this is not meant to be practical. This is meant just to be fun. And shit, I mean, look at the tip. Talk about like a reinforced tip. You have so much metal behind the edge. And I mean, these are just fun. I mean, you saw it in the video when I was chopping stuff with it, when I had it first done before I had the Cerakote on there. I was stabbing shit, I was chopping shit. I was basically having fun with these for like half a day because they're just so much fun to play around with. And they're very unique little pieces. I mean, honestly, they're probably some of my favorite knives I've done today just because they're so ridiculous. And I mean, size-wise, they're the biggest knives I've ever done. These are all over, definitely over 350. I think they're close to 400 millimeters. So, I mean, these are just ridiculously cool to play around with. And also, one of the things I love about my job is that I'm the only human being, probably ever, who's going to be dual-wielding two of these fucking things. I mean, come on, how cool is that? So we'll talk about the knives real quick. So you can see they're all fairly similar. So we'll talk about this one first. This is the third one I did. So you can see it's obviously the most different. It's got the thinnest blade. You can see it's got a drastic taper all the way out to the tip. This is the first one I grind, and this is back when I thought I was going to grind these all to be sort of functional. So this is the most functional out of all three. The rest of these have got very little distal taper out to the tip. So distal taper to the tip, so up to here it's almost a normal kukri around about here, and then here it's still ridiculously thick. I mean, this is still a monster. The whole handle here has been given a rock pattern, which I carved in with a, I think it was a 1-inch contact wheel all the way around. And this whole thing's been Cerakoted for rust resistance because SUP9 is like 5160, and both of those steels basically insta-rust. So Cerakote helps protect that. And then this is basically a blackout finish. So I did a black paracord, wrist lanyard thingy to kind of keep in your hand. Personally, I don't like to use these when I chop stuff because I'm kind of worried if I let go of the knife, it's going to swing around and hit me and cut me in the dick. But I just figured I'd chuck it on there. You can cut it off if you don't like it. And this is also probably the sharpest of all three. I mean, keep in mind, none of these are very sharp because sharpening these things, just the thickness of the blade, you kind of have to have a very steep angle. And also, with all the force you're putting on these things, you don't really want a really fine edge because A, it'd come up to like here. B, it's just going to, shatter and chip and all that sort of stuff if you have a really fine edge because of all the force that's going into the cut. So yeah, that's the first one. And these all have Kydex sheaths. I'm actually show the sheaths when I put them away. So these all have Kydex sheaths. This is obviously the thinnest of all three. And as you can imagine, that is most of a sheet of Kydex that went into each one of these things. And then also, this was way too big to actually fit into my standard Kydex setup. So I had to redesign my whole Kydex system to actually make these sheaths. And then still, it took me 3 goes, probably for each of these things to actually make the sheaths. So there was a giant amount of Kydex offcuts lying around from making these bloody things. Next up, we have this one. This is one of the ones that I pre-sold. And the guy who ordered this was just ridiculously patient. I mean, the whole way I was basically saying, oh, mate, it's going to be a couple more months, it's going to be a couple more months. And he was patient the whole time. I even offered to refund his deposit multiple times, and he was just like, no, don't worry about it. Take as long as you need, which was incredibly helpful. And yeah, I was definitely stressing out about these things, but it could have been a lot worse. So this one has got, obviously, a lot less of distal taper. It's a lot thicker. And it's not as sharp as the other ones. I mean, they do kind of cut paper, but I mean, you're still talking about just a ridiculous amount of thickness back here that it's not really going to get sharp. But hell, who cares about that? It's just 12 millimeters. Get the fuck off my lawn, essentially. This one's got Canvas micarta handles with a textured pattern up here, all nicely rounded off, and then red liners on there, as requested from the customer, and just ridiculous amounts of steel. And it's all going to be held together with some T15 bolts. And again, another little lanyard thing with matching colors on the handle. And you can see we've got some really nice plunges on these things. So I was originally thinking I was going to round the spines of them, but I decided instead to kind of do chamfers to kind of maintain that tank effect of these knives, which probably doesn't make a huge difference because again, 12 millimeter thick, I mean, it's hard not to have a tank effect. But yeah, I just like the chamfering all around. And you still have like a little choke up position here for, whittling, even though this is definitely not great for whittling, but it's up there. And I might actually keep the design for these and make some more out of like 1/4 inch stock if I ever feel like it. Because this in 1/4 inch would be actually a fairly functional little knife. You could chop really well, but we'll see. So here's the second one. And also we've got another sheath for this one. Shit, one of these is the sheath. I think it's... Alright. I think this is the sheath through it. I'm not going to put it in because I mixed them up. But yeah, this has also got a sheath. Just ridiculously large again. And finally, and the only one that's actually still available, is this bad boy. So same kind of deal as the other one. The exact same thing, except it's got blue liners instead of red. And this one is also just as ridiculous as all the other ones. And it is for sale. It is on my website. It is not cheap, as you can imagine, considering all the work that went to these and the considerable amount of materials and tools and abrasives that went into building this. Is not cheap, but it's up there. So if you want it, it's on the website. I will probably not be making more anytime soon, if ever, because obviously I have no interest or desire to make any more. And with these things, they're just a straight up money pit. So I don't even think I've made my money back on these things. It was so ridiculously expensive and time consuming. But who cares? It's cool. And it's just a fun way to kind of differentiate myself and make my own little mark in the knife community. So yeah, that's that one. Let's get these all out here for a final shot as I trip over everything. Anyway, that's it, guys. That is the Beast project, as I've been calling it, because this thing was a nightmare of a project. I don't know if it's more or less of a nightmare than the 25mm fixed blade video I did. It's close, because there's obviously 3 of these versus 1 knife in the 25mm project. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and thank you for watching basically what's been 10 minutes of me bitching about how hard it was to make these knives. But hell, this has been therapy for me, because I'm going to have nightmares about these things probably for the next 10 years. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.